The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Thomas Sanjurjo. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Dom. How's it going?
Very well, thanks. And Jack Baruzzini. Hello, Jack.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well, thanks. So, as we record this, we're recording on a Wednesday, May 27th, 2020, in case you're listening to this far in the future. But today was supposed to be the day that SpaceX was going to launch the Crew Dragon space capsule, the Crew Dragon spacecraft, to the International Space Station, the first launch of a private spaceship, manned spaceship, to the space station, the first orbital launch, although, as we were talking beforehand, Jack and I were saying that Branson's Virgin Galactic did a suborbital with spaceship, right. Starship 2, I think it's called. But this would have been the first. They got scrubbed for weather, which, you know, it happens. It's a first launch. They're not going to take any chances. But they're going to try again on Saturday afternoon, 3:20 Eastern time. Figure out the rest of the time zones for yourself. I can't do that. And you just ask Google. And so which would be nice because I think Saturday more people can watch. This is the sort of thing you want to watch, right, guys? I mean, this is big time space launch stuff. This isn't the old usual launching things into space, which, you know, it baffles me that that's become run of the mill. But what do you guys think? This is pretty cool, right?
Yeah, it's history.
Yeah, it's something that's never really been done before, and I was stunned, like, watching it. They did everything they could on SpaceX's part to make sure that everybody remembered that it was SpaceX that was carrying these astronauts into space,
right?
Even down to, like, you know, we were talking about the equipment being all SpaceX equipment that's been kind of rented by NASA, basically. Yep. But even the vehicle that took the astronauts from the main area down the concourse to the ship was a Tesla car, and it was like, yes, all right.
That's awesome. And one of the things, like, I mean, there's so much tech in this, and it's kind of amazing because with government funded projects, it's really about, it takes forever for the technology to reach operational, and so it's usually, I mean, while it's cutting edge, it for what it is, it's often doesn't feel as cutting edge as what we can buy in the store now, right? Mm-hmm. Except with Elon Musk, he's not just a technologist. He's also kind of like Steve Jobs. He gets that you have to sell things. And so the technology they use really feels cutting edge, feels sci-fi, to the point I think he hires like sci-fi movie set designers and costume designers for his stuff, right?
Yeah, no, and it's funny because he's a big fan of science fiction too, so you can really tell that he wants to bring that feel to it. Like with the way the government contracting world works with, like, military projects or with space projects. I can't remember what astronaut it was, but he was talking about how it was always kind of nerve-wracking being on the Saturn V because he realized that the person who built that was the lowest bidder for the contract.
Right? Exactly.
Whereas with SpaceX, you're going to get a lot more flash.
Right. He wants it to look good. And we have this New York Times article about the spacesuits that the astronauts wear, where he says it's like a tuxedo for the Starship Enterprise, which is, I mean, kind of funny. I mean, you don't want it to be all flash. You want it, of course, to be functional. But right. With the regular NASA stuff, they don't care about what it looks like. They want it to work.
As exemplified by their suits, their next gen suits are like the clunkiest looking, most not sci-fi thing ever.
Right.
And they look awful.
Whereas, you know, they're designed by engineers who are about function, and the form follows function. Whereas with Musk, he started with a Hollywood costume designer. And apparently in Hollywood, there are guys who specialize in designing, like, spacesuits and helmets, space helmets. Let's be clear. Space helmets, like spacesuit helmets in sci-fi, are not really practical. You don't want lights on the inside of your helmet. The director wants lights so you can see the actor's face, but the actor will tell you with the lights on, you can't see anything for the glare on the glass an inch and a half from your nose. I mean,
yeah.
So, but the first thing they sat down and figured out the form, how to make it look cool. Then they figured out the engineering for the suit. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, and it's really cool that there's there's a lot of talk about wearable technology becoming very popular again because of this kind of thing. And if you notice, they had inside of their suits, if anybody was watching this, then inside of the leg of their suit, they had an iPad type thing. Like I won't say an iPad, it was a tablet device strapped to their leg. And the suits, the gloves on the suits are interactive with all of the devices they're touching, and all the devices that they're touching, the screens are all touch screens and things like that. So everything's kind of thought through this lens of, okay, let's make it look really neat, and then let's make it functional from there.
Well, it's really interesting how clean the inside of the Dragon capsule is, especially if you compare it to like the space shuttle or the Apollo things, where there's just buttons everywhere, there's stuff everywhere, and this looks like the inside of a shuttlecraft.
Right. This looks like something out of a Hollywood set. It's amazing, and like you said, one of you said, it's all touch screens. It's all monitors. And my pick of the week is sort of related to. So I'm not going to spoil it, but it's like a video game. It's like and this is technology for the current generation. For who grew up playing video games, playing flight sims, and enjoying these things. And so it feels futuristic. It feels like a movie set. This is what we want the future to look like. And so by doing this, he sells his vision and his program to the public, and he gets public support for it, which is, good for him.
There was a really interesting interview during the whole thing, too, where it was the director of NASA and Elon Musk were in the interview, and they were talking about the fact that what they really want to do is to start inspiring people to want to be part of this. And they did a poll, like while they were, I mean, I know it's probably the segment of the poll that was the segment of people that were responding to the poll were probably very prone to this, but over 80% of people said that they would love to be part of a space mission if they were allowed to. And, I mean, obviously it's people that are watching NASA and that are watching the space launch anyway. So,
right.
That's people that are wanting to go into space anyway. But, you felt like you could, watching these guys sit there. It didn't look like it took that much extensive craziness. Like, you look at the inside of those old cockpits and you're like, I don't even know that I could count that many buttons while I'm sitting there nervously waiting for things to launch. But I could do a touch screen,
Right, exactly. With all the buttons and dials, you're like, I don't know if I can remember what everything does. With a screen, you're just like, the screen, and it leads you to the things you need to know. Sure, why not?
You can also programmatically change what it's showing you rather than having every single button possible available. So depending on what stage you're in, you get the buttons you need. Contextual
controls so that you're not overwhelmed with stuff. Exactly. The astronauts are Bob and Doug, which I think is great. Yeah. Benken and Hurley. Benken is an engineer by training. He was a flight test engineer with the U.S. Air Force. Hurley is a U.S. Marine Corps fighter pilot, graduate of the Naval Test Pilot School. So classic astronaut guy there on that. Both have flown on the shuttles, so they've been in space before.
And both are really married to astronauts as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the Apple TV Plus show For All Mankind, where one of the astronauts' wives ends up becoming an astronaut too, which was interesting. And all sorts of mayhem ensues when she goes up before he does.
Seems like some similar stories to here. If you read more into these guys, it's really interesting.
Cool. So I'm sure we'll be talking about more of this, especially where it has a technology angle. And good luck to these guys. And I'm looking forward to seeing the Crew Dragon launch on Saturday, God willing. All right. So let's move on to our second topic, which is back to the 2020 thing, right? The virus,
the current unpleasantness.
Yes, the unprecedented times we're living in, to use the term as well. This is more of a positive thing, and it's how the lockdown, the quarantine, however you want to say it, the forced stay-at-homedness is encouraging us to use technology to connect. So the distancing is bringing us together. And one of the articles that kind of inspired this discussion was in the Washington Post, but it concerns something in my neck of the woods up in New Hampshire about this socially distanced concert. So it's a concert venue, a music hall, and they weren't able to have concerts, obviously. So the guy, thinking a little outside the box, decided to have he built an outdoor stage, lined off the parking lot with special distancing, sold spots. So you could, when you came, you could buy 2 spots, rent 2 spots for your ticket, one for your car, one for you to sit in. He's and live streaming it. This is the technology angle. They're still live streaming them to people who can't come to be in person, because I think they can only sell 70 tickets for 75 cars or accommodate 75 cars. But it's been hugely popular. People are excited. They want to get out. And this is a great way to get out, be at these things, and not violate the restrictions that are on us. I thought it was an interesting idea. I mean, not super tech on this one, I guess, but we're also seeing that with churches. In my area, Catholic churches are beginning to go back to mass. In other parts of the country, they've already been going. Local parish is having a parking lot mass. They're all out in the parking lot. I was kind of hoping we would see more parishes that wanted to do a mass like over live stream, and then to people in the parking lot who could then receive the Eucharist from the priest coming out to the cars. I know some places did that. We didn't get much of that. So what do you guys think of this? These 2 bits here.
I think it's really interesting that we're moving into this realm where people are being forced to embrace the technology that already existed, because there's not really any huge innovation that's gone into a lot of the stuff that we're doing. It's neat to see some physical innovations where we're making decisions about how to, I don't know, I mean, almost fix things that have existed that have been problematic for a long while.
Right.
Because, we're just, the coronavirus is just illustrating how unsanitary a lot of the things that we have been doing have been as we've grown in a population, and it's, I think a lot of it's just growing pains for humanity. We've gotten big, but there's a lot of us. We cram ourselves into these tiny little areas, and we don't take into account how much disease can spread so easily. Then at the same time, being a teacher and working with a lot of teachers, having to learn to embrace technology as a teaching tool it's been really good for a lot of people that would otherwise have just said, I don't have time for that kind of thing because I'm too busy teaching.
Right.
And now that they've seen the other end of that, they're really reaping the benefits of, like, I had a 3rd grade teacher that I work with that I coached her through a project where she was doing virtual tours, and she had all the kids go out and become virtual tour guides for different locations in the United States.
Oh, cool.
And they did videos for it, and she was so stressed about how they were going to do this. And the videos she got back were so top quality that she was just blown away, especially by kids that normally did not provide very good work for her because they just didn't get into the kind of run-of-the-mill things that were going on in the classroom, but that they really latched onto this assignment.
That's cool. Yeah. Speaking of using these online teaching tools, I was asked, I volunteer with Boy Scouts of America, and I've just become a merit badge counselor at the beginning of this, which bad timing, and because we can't sit down with the kids and teach them stuff, and so the local council came up with an idea of doing these merit badge classes online using Google Classroom as the backbone. And I kind of got through. I'd never done merit badge counseling. Now I'm doing online merit badge counseling. I don't know what I'm doing, and getting thrown into this was a bit stressful. I'll have to be honest. I mean, as much as I do this for a living. I'm online interacting with people for a living. It was still really strange, and there was a steep learning curve for me to try to figure out how best to use this tool to reach these kids, because they're not getting a grade. It's not a class per se. my job is to counsel them, to lead them as they learn and teach themselves. It was hard. I'm not sure I accomplished everything I wanted to in it and had the goal, but by the end, there a handful of the there was all boys in this one, and by the end, the handful of boys had earned their merit badges and had done really well. But I tell you, if I have to sit through one more Zoom class or meeting or whatever with people, it's very stressful because people who aren't used to being on these, like I am, I'm on a Skype call, 6-7 times a week with doing various podcasts. But people not muting their mics and not knowing how to unmute their mics and the camera work and all that other stuff. There's still that learning curve. So it's stressful to be thrown into this, but maybe at the end of this, we'll all be a little bit better about it, I guess.
Yeah, I think as people learn how to use the technology better, I think it's gonna stick around even when we get through this. Whenever that happens, I don't know how much that is going to change once we're out of the situation. Like I know even for us, having all the masses available, like you can go to daily mass now every day if you want.
Yes,
places didn't do before. So I really hope that people continue doing things like that. So even people who cannot get out of their houses, even after this is over with, can still take advantage of that.
I would say one other very interesting side note on that, the etiquette of using a program like this is you have to get used to waiting until someone finishes speaking before you can jump in. And
Yeah.
that's a skill that I hope sticks with us.
Oh, yes. I mean, even with podcasting, this is why we do a podcast with video between us. We don't record the video, but that way, with several of my podcasts, we've had to learn over the years, when you want to say something, you hold up a finger, and say, when you're done, I'd like to make a point. But I like with Thomas, you're on a podcast with 5 people, The Secrets of Star Wars. I mean, that could be very chaotic if people didn't observe the etiquette. And it sort of teaches us to be patient with one another, doesn't it?
It really does, and I think that it's something that I've seen in my wife's doing her Girl Scout meetings where they're having to they mute the girls and then they let them, when it's time, they say, okay, what did you think, and they point specifically at people to get responses from. It's a lot of interesting interpersonal skills that are useful in everyday life that we could really take away.
Yeah, that is so true. One of the things I'm really kind of interested in is the old things that are coming back because of this. And one of those things is drive-in movie theaters. Drive-in theaters had their heyday in the 50s and 60s. I remember them when I was a kid in the 70s. There was still a couple around. There was one that was right on the highway here in the Boston area that we'd drive by all the time, and I'd crane my neck to see what's on the screen because maybe it would be a movie I'm not supposed to watch, because I was little and what's on the screen? Is it a monster? And but that went away, and there was very few drive-in movie theaters left. But now they're back. They're big because what a great way to social distance and go to the movies. You're in your car. But I'm not sure what I kind of tried to find out what the technology was. I wasn't able to. But what technology they're using now? The old days it was you drive up into your spot and there's a pole with the speaker, like a metal speaker on it with a wire, and you hang that in the window of your car, and they pipe the sound of the movie through that, and it sounded terrible. But you're in your car at the drive-in. But now I'm gonna guess for a long time they were probably doing low power FM. Do you think?
Mm-hmm. They do. That's the one near us. They still do that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I went to one, and that's what they were doing. So I think that's pretty much the standard for most places that do it right now.
Because what I was thinking of, and if you're a tech guy, take this idea and run with it, because I want someone to do something with it, which is to stream the audio to an app, and that way the only people who get to get the sound is the ones who've purchased the ticket in the app. So, and it's perfect for social distancing because you purchase your admission in the app, you drive up, you could maybe show a QR code or something to the person at the gate. You go in, you park in your spot, and you just play it over your phone, like into the Bluetooth or whatever speaker system in your car, or if you have a Bluetooth speaker in your car. And I mean, I think that would be a great way of using technology to kind of advance this. I'm not sure about the lag, dealing with the sync issues between what's on the screen and what's coming out of the speaker might be a little tricky, making sure it's in sync. but because I don't know how they deal with that with FM. I mean, maybe they just don't bother doing anything about it. Maybe it's not an issue. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just curious, like how we're taking these nostalgic things. Like I'm gonna guess like drive-in food places like Sonic are gonna be bigger again. You know, it's kind of interesting how technology can kind of bring some of these things back. Is there anything along those lines that you guys have noticed or thinking about?
Well, I was just thinking about the drive-in restaurants today when we drove through a Chick-fil-A, and it was one of those where the interior of the store is not open. And Chick-fil-A around here, I don't know if it's this way where you guys are, but it is always a huge line at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru.
Yeah.
And this was right around lunchtime, but they have it down. They have the system down really well. It only took us about 10 minutes to get through, and the line was wrapped around the building. So,
oh, wow.
They know what they're doing, and I figure if they can keep that kind of thing up, it's a pretty good way to go back to that concept of the drive-through or the, bring the food to the car and leave it at the car kind of thing.
Yeah, they're very efficient there. I was thinking about with the drive-in movies, I think it's a fun novelty. I don't know how much it's going to stick just because you cannot physically get as many people into your theater as you would a normal theater. And I really think that this is probably going to spell the death of going to the theater to see movies for the most part. I think there will still be like specialty theaters if you want to see like smaller films or for special occasions. But I think for the most part, we're probably in the next 10 years going to see most movies just go straight to streaming.
I have a feeling, which would be a shame, only because some movies deserve to be on a big screen with a big sound system. I have a decent sized screen. I mean, TVs are bigger than they've ever been, but I don't have like a movie theater style. So there's something about that, and especially, and again, the social experience of going to the theater as well. And it will be a shame to lose that. I hope we keep things like the restaurant theaters, like where you can go get a meal and watch a movie on the screen, that sort of thing, like Alamo Drafthouse. Although I hear that I think last week Pat was saying that Alamo in the chain in the Southwest. In Phoenix, the Phoenix theaters have closed, so who knows? But I mean, we've talked several times recently about this. Should movies be going direct to streaming and skip the theaters altogether? And what do we lose? Do we lose anything by doing that, or do we just gain? I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it because we've talked about it before. I want to hear what you guys think about this.
I think it depends on the movie, honestly. Like, there's a lot of movies nowadays, even that I just wait till it comes out on DVD, or not even DVD anymore. But for certain things, like the spectacle movies, like Star Wars or something like that, where it's kind of like it's an experience to go to. I would much prefer to see that in the theater.
I think with the advent of watch parties and some streaming services and social media things are picking up on that more fully. Yeah. I think we're going to see a lot. I think we're going to see a lot less need of actually going anywhere to see movies.
That's
and
true.
Honestly, as a consumer, if you think about how much, even me who does not spend much on going to the movies, if I spent all the amount of money that I went to a movie over the course of a couple of years and dumped it on a home theater system,
that's true.
I'd be set up, So I'm not really. Yeah. I don't really think anymore. The consumer tech is so accessible now. Like the thing I'd miss the most is the popcorn, honestly. Right. And the amount of times that I could afford the popcorn was so few and far between.
I could make better popcorn. I know I could. If I put a little time into it, I could. I mean, for me to take my family to see Star Wars, which is the one thing we all see together, is $100 at least. Usually more. I've got 5 kids. So it's just, you're right. I mean, even if it cost me $25 to stream a first run movie, to rent, it's still a better deal. Now, if I'm spending $25 to stream it because I want to see it, I might wait. I'm not going to, I don't know if I want to spend it just for me to watch it. So there's that, the aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the movie theaters are probably going the way that, and I've seen movie theaters trying to pivot and find other income streams, like renting other theaters for corporate events and conferences, live streaming of plays, like Broadway plays, and other things like that. So they're trying to find other streams, but even then, with social distancing until we get past the need to have this distancing. It's going to be tough for them to get enough people in to justify. We'll have to see. All right, so I think that's a good discussion. So we do have a bit of feedback that I want to cover from a past episode. Listener John had wrote in with some questions about upgrading to a new iPhone SE. He wasn't sure what to do, whether to trade in his old 7 Plus, which was broken. Had some aspects that were broken, and he wanted to know whether it was even ethical to trade it into Apple. Even though he'd told them exactly what was wrong with it. So he followed up. He said he got his new iPhone SE on May 14th, about a week ahead of the estimated delivery date, and gives him some of his key points. He says he's adjusting to the smaller screen from the 7 Plus. He likes the comfort of being able to hold the phone one-handed and the reduced bulk. The A13 Bionic chip and the price of the device are the best selling points. The only cons, he misses the zoom that he had on the 7 Plus's camera. It doesn't have the same kind of zoom. He doesn't take a ton of pictures, and the camera is fine otherwise. And this one is one that a lot of people have noticed, that haptic touch does not work on the lock screen notifications. So with most of the other phones, so you get a lock screen notification, you can tap on it and interact with it. Like if you've got an alarm, you can snooze it or make it go. You can't do that now. You have to unlock the phone. You have to tap it and open up the app. Unlock the phone and open up the app to interact with it. And that is not a bug. That is how it's supposed to work according to Apple. So, it's the less expensive phone. You're not going to have all the features, I suppose. And then he says battery life is about the same as the iPhone 8 that he's heard, which is average, relatively. And then his assessment is overall, it's a great phone, great price tag, probably perfect for the average user. And he did say that as far as the trade-in went, that old iPhone that he sent back, they got it. He sent it back on May 16th, so 2 days after he got the 7 Plus. By May 24th, he'd received an email from Apple saying that everything checks out and he got the full $150 refund. So they're happy. He's happy. Bottom line, for $330, he got a very solid new phone. Well, $330 less that $150 back, which is
nice.
A really great deal. So thank you, John, for that follow up on your email. We really appreciate it. So what are you guys carrying for phones these days? You get the same phone you've had for a while? Something new?
Yeah, I'm still with my Moto X.
Okay.
So
I have a refurbished iPhone XR, which I like, but if I'd known that the new SE was coming out, I probably would have waited for that because I had the original SE, and that's the best phone I've ever had.
Yeah. My wife had an SE before. She has the 8 now. She's got I think 8 months left on the payment plan thingy, at which point she'll probably keep it until it breaks, which is how she uses phones. That's not me. New phone? Oh, yes, please. That's usually how I am. But I still get the 10X Max Plus Super Duper, or whatever they call it these days, which is still awesome. So let's talk about some more headlines. Here's a situation a friend of mine ran into with his son that a lot of people ran into. So a lot of students taking the AP exams, the advanced placement exams for college. You take these in order to place out of certain classes and get into certain kinds of classes in college. And because they weren't able to take them in person, the College Board had to come up with some workarounds for the test taking. They had to take it at home. And one of the things they had to do was upload a photo of their test sheet. Once they were done taking the test, they had to take a photo and upload it. Well, it turns out that the College Board's website could only accept JPEGs and PNGs, and iPhones and a couple of Android phones, I think Samsung phones, take them in the new HEIC or HEIC or HEIF format. And the students couldn't get the pictures uploaded, and they ended up. It says they failed the exams. They just didn't complete, and they'll be able to take the exams again. Which, if you're a kid who spent the time to study and take the exam, that's not much better. That's really got to be deflating.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are blaming Apple for its stupid proprietary formats. I'm a little like, College Board, maybe you should have prepared to accept photos from the most popular phones on the market. So what do you guys think of this?
That's definitely on the College Board. You need to do your research before setting something up like that. But I think that's kind of just par for the course how any sort of online testing goes for those kind of things. Because I remember taking math classes when I was doing college. I did an online math course, and it would do that thing where you'd put in the answer and it'd be correct, but because the spaces were not exactly how it wanted it, it would not accept it. So,
right.
Oh, yes. Don't get me started with Khan Academy. My daughter does that for math.
Yeah, I really, this is totally on College Board. There is nothing wrong with having a different format, especially when you're such a big part of the market like the iPhones are. It's really ridiculous to say that it's a lack of awareness on their part that they should have had, and it should have been tested. Like it really. Right. How did they avoid that? Did
no one test it by taking the test and uploading it with an iPhone, or did their testers all have you can turn off the HEIC format on the phone and have it only store JPEGs, which is the compatible format. So did all of their testers all just use JPEG on the setting on their phones? I mean, come on, that has got to be bureaucracy at work, where someone flagged it in the bug tracking software and someone said not important enough, we ship it. And that's how it went. Yeah, I think it's on them.
Yeah.
So there are instructions. We'll post it online in the show notes, a link to some instructions on how to turn off the HEIC format if you're going to be taking a College Board test and you need to take just the idea that they have to take a photo of their test sheet too as proof of taking it. That right there is, a little bit of the analog digital hole there. Anyway, I mean, I just think that's a bit low rent on APs. I mean, College Boards.
Not surprising though.
Yes, not surprising.
Yeah, not surprising at
all. Jack, you brought my attention to this story. A taste display that someone invented. You can taste flavors through your computer. What's this about?
So there's a scientist in Japan has invented a lickable screen. So it's not actually a screen. That's just what he calls it, because it works the same way a computer screen works, where when you're seeing the different colors on your screen, you're not actually seeing all those different colors. You're just seeing different intensities of red, green, and blue. And depending on what color it's showing, it will turn those intensities up and down to mimic those colors. And that's how our eyes receive the information. And this works the same way as that. It's basically this device that has a bunch of gel tubes, and each tube has molecules in it that are for salty, acidic, bitter, umami, and sweet. And the way it recreates any taste is it will adjust the intensities of the molecules getting to your tongue. And it does that with using this process called electrophoresis. So basically it passes a current through that gel, and that will activate the molecules that will move either towards or away from your tongue. So it's pretty interesting technology. The way he talks about it in here is you could use it the same way people use a vape. So instead of actually smoking a cigarette when you're using a vape, you're getting your nicotine, although it's probably not really better for you. But with this, you could taste chocolate instead of actually eating a piece of chocolate.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's going to be as satisfying, but it reminds me when I was a kid that people would talk about, oh yeah, someday we'll have smell-o-vision and taste-o-vision, for like cooking shows. They're like, oh, if only you could smell what Julia Child is cooking. Well, somebody went out and built the taste-o-vision, essentially. You could taste things over the internet. I can imagine this being used for evil, though. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely like a prank toy or something.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even see it being necessarily used for evil, but I'm imagining future VR systems in which you have something to insert into your mouth and insert into your nose, and VR is suddenly becoming much more invasive when you start thinking about these kinds of things. While it's interesting, it's also kind of like, I'm not really sure I want to go there.
Yeah, I don't know what the practical applications of it are. I'm sure there's something, but it's cool nonetheless.
I mean, if you're a big fan of a cooking show, and you want to taste whatever the great chef is making this week, but I wonder how accurate to whatever, it's a like you mentioned, it's a simulacrum. Right. That's not the thing.
And you don't get the texture, you don't get the heat, you don't get all those other things that go into eating something. So
right.
Yeah, there's so much more than just the strict,
taste buds,
taste.
Yeah. It's an interesting technology demonstration, though. That's for sure.
I thought it was really cool though. Like if you look at the device, you hold it with one hand and you help transmit the current through the device. But then one of it was there were sliders for each of the different flavor profiles, and so you could literally slide the flavor up and down for that particular type and like tune it in. It looked like to whatever you might be interested. Like something very sweet was everything not, the sweet all the way up and everything else down, and then you could just gradually move it around from there.
Kind of reminds me of one of those old, those pins that had the multiple different inks in them.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you were a kid, you always try to take it and jam them all up into it at once.
All at once. That would be the thing. You like the first thing you would do with this is, okay, what do they all taste like at once?
What do everything tastes like?
And you only do that once.
Yep. I just like that he calls it a lickable screen.
Yes. All right. So the next headline I want to talk about is an interesting ruling by a federal judge, against the FBI, saying that they can't. So for a long time, it's been the police can't make you enter your password into your phone to unlock it. Well, this judge said that the police, law enforcement, can't even activate the iPhone lock screen or any phone lock screen without a warrant. They can't press the button on the side to make the screen light up without to presumably see your notifications, perhaps, or anything else on your screen without getting a warrant. I thought that was very interesting, especially given that with iPhones, they now have a function, the standard, the default function, where if you pick it up, it activates the screen. So what do you guys think of this?
I think I agree with it in principle. I don't think it's that practical because, like you said, most phones, when you pick them up, they auto-activate. But also, I don't know if this is the default setting, but on my phone, it will not show any of the notifications until I've actually unlocked it. Like, it just says you have a text message, but it won't say what it is. So there's no personal information there.
You've probably disabled the default setting because I think it defaults to showing. Although when you set it up, it will ask. It will tell you, like, you can go one way or the other. And I think that's good. What about you, Thomas? What do you think of this?
I agree with Jack that I like the concept. The way this is going to work, and it's not going to stop it's not going to stop that view from happening. But what it will stop is any of that information getting into a trial is going to throw the entire case against the person out. So it's going to force law enforcement to be much more careful about how they approach invading your privacy in that way. And so I don't think there's any practical application other than saying that if this gets to court and you use any information that you acquired from the phone, then the entire case is going to come into question about whether or not you had the warrant, when you had the warrant, and how you acquired that information.
Well, it's even trickier too, because the judge said that the police could look at the lock screen at the time of the arrest, given that certain circumstances allow for a search to take place without a warrant at the time of arrest. Like, you're arresting this guy, you're allowed to pat him down, for instance, look through his wallet, for that sort of thing. But when they get to later parts of the search and seizure, so it seems sort of technical, legally technical, but later parts require that warrant first. So, yeah, I agree with you guys. It doesn't seem like this is workable from a technology standpoint. It doesn't seem practical to put all of these cases in jeopardy based on a standard function. I mean, it would almost be like saying in the old days, you can't even pick up a phone to listen for a dial tone. Pick up a handset off of a cradle to listen for a dial tone. Well, I mean, that's just a standard function. I don't know. I'm not sure this will stand up to further judicial scrutiny, but interesting nonetheless. Are either of you guys familiar with Keybase, the app, a web service, public crypto?
Yeah, I've kept up with them a little bit to try, because they do a lot of really interesting crypto management stuff. And so it's been, I was, when you shared this article about them joining Zoom, I was really intrigued that Zoom's kind of angling that direction.
Yes.
It doesn't solve all the problems that I have with Zoom, but it's a good direction for them to head in.
Well, and that's the other thing I was going to bring up is I've been using for a few years as my public-private key pair crypto. So you can, I don't want to get too much into the weeds on that, but you can encrypt things with a private key that only you hold, and then you put a public key out there which other people can use to decrypt it. And what that says is it ensures that this message or whatever it is that's been encrypted comes from you. It's a public-private key crypto, and they have a service, a directory for it. They also do things like verify identity, like your social media. They verify that websites and different social media belong to the person who says it belongs to, and that sort of thing. And I've been using it for years now. I was a little bummed to hear that Zoom had acquired them, because Zoom doesn't have the best rep. I mean, lately they've been doing really well for themselves, and they've been publicly trying to get better at their security and encryption. But the last couple of years we've talked about it several times on the show about they've had some security issues, questionable practices like installing web servers on Macs that you can't delete easily.
Mm-hmm.
And questions about whether they have ties to the Chinese government, and some security problems with that there. I know folks who will not install Zoom anywhere on any of their computers just because they refuse because of that. So it does concern me that means Zoom is now going to own Keybase, which is the crypto. You know what I mean? It is. Yeah. Keybase even going to be as secure as I once thought it? Can I rely on it? So I'm a little concerned about that.
I would like them to get their best practices of installing in order, really, because that's been my biggest bother with Zoom, is that it runs over everything. It installs in a very kind of shady manner.
Yeah.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it's not out and out bad, but it basically installs itself like a virus. And I don't appreciate that as an end user, and there's no way to there's no options that set that there's like normally an app will install and it'll give you advanced options and it'll allow you to tell where it's going to install and what pieces you want to install. This nothing. The Zoom is just it installs with the assumption that it wants to override everything on your computer.
Right,
and it's kind of nerve-wracking.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no granularity there.
All right. So, do you guys use any public-private key, GPG, or anything like that? Did you? Is this part of your practices?
I'm a Linux GPG, so I do command line GPG stuff.
Okay. All right. So. Real hacker nerd stuff.
Yeah, super hacker nerd stuff.
How about you, Jack? Is this anywhere in your practices?
Yeah, I use the same thing. I use Linux. I use when I'm on Windows, I use just the built-in BitLocker for everything.
Okay. So. Yeah. I think it was Lee Laporte who kind of clued me into Keybase a few years ago, and I've been using it since. It provided a really easy front end for crypto, and I thought it was a way that people could, more of the public could get into it. But we'll see. Well, I'm going to keep an eye on it. We'll see how it goes. If you have iOS devices that you weren't able to launch apps on, it was giving you error messages about not being able to open shared apps. Then this past Monday, you suddenly had like I did 75 app updates on your iPad or whatever. That would be because there was a bug that somewhere in there. Apple's not being too forthcoming on what exactly happened, but some sort of bug made all these apps inaccessible and required a re-download from the App Store of an update. Probably not a complete re-download, but downloading an update to fix all of them. So that was a quick. Did either of you guys see on this on any of your Apple devices?
I didn't have it happen.
I didn't have any of it.
Yeah, I didn't have it happen where I couldn't open an app, but I did. Like I said, I had like 75 updates. Speaking of shady practices, eBay is apparently port scanning every computer that visits their website, and I will no longer be going to eBay. So, is there a legitimate reason why eBay would need to port scan visitors to their website, guys? Anything?
I guess the most charitable way you can view it is that they want to make sure that it's not from a malicious country. But even then, like, no.
Yeah,
trying to figure out a way.
That's IP. That's IP based. That's not even a port scan. Like a port scan. So to make sure everybody understands the difference between what's going on here, because I think that you could be confused and say, oh, well, they're just finding the IP address of they're trying to figure out information about the people that are coming. This is not that. Yeah. This is like if you walked into a place of business and they said, we need to give you a cavity search before you can come into the place of business.
Right.
You know, I mean, this is much more invasive than just having your temperature taken to check whether or not you have COVID-19 kind of thing.
Right.
And it's definitely like this is step one in trying to find a way to hack somebody's computer. Like you go and you do a port scan. You're poking for something that's open. And I unless I'll try to be charitable too. I'll go with Jack's like, let's be charitable. Maybe it's they're trying to use a specific purchase program, they have a wallet program that they're wanting to use, and they want to make sure that this is something that's accessible. That's the most kind thing I can say, but it's so that, like, reading into this a little more, it's so broad and incredibly overreaching what they're actually doing that it is not in any way okay.
It is. It is looking for the ports that are used for remote controlling a computer, basically.
Yeah.
Remote looking at your screen, and that's what there are some who theorize that what they're trying to probe for computers that have been compromised to make fraudulent purchases.
Right.
Which I get that is an important thing to protect all of us, but that this is the nuclear bomb version of that.
Yeah,
like port scanning everybody. This is the like at the airport trying to get on a plane, and they do a cavity search on every passenger in order to make sure there are no terrorists carrying bombs. Like, no, right. There's a limit on that. I'm sorry about the whole cavity search analogy, folks, but
that's what it is. That's what it is for your computer. It's essentially the same thing.
It's as invasive. It is a personally invasive search of computers. Yeah. So.
I wonder what happens if you go to eBay if you have your firewall set up properly to block that.
Yeah. I was wondering that same thing. Or then if you're on a VPN, like what exactly are they going to find if you're on a VPN?
Right. So. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go to eBay without being on a VPN at this point. All right. So be careful, folks. Go to eBay until they publicly tell us what's going on and stop doing that. All right, so that brings us to our picks of the week, and I think we all have, in honor of SpaceX's aborted flight today, we all have space-related picks, and Jack, I'm going to let you go first. What is your pick this week?
My pick of the week is the Stellarium Mobile Sky app. They have a desktop version. It's the Stellarium astronomy software, and basically you can use it. It's like a virtual astronomy app for your computer, and you can use it to look at the constellations. You can track satellites, and that's the cool thing about the mobile app is that it uses your GPS as well as your accelerometer, so you can use it, hold it up to the sky, and kind of do an overlay where you can see where all the constellations are and where all the satellites are and where the International Space Station is. So if you want to see that flying overhead, or if you want to see the 50 million Skylink satellites that are there at this point, you can use that to find where they're going to be and then try to see them.
Does it look through the camera?
It doesn't look through the camera. It just does an overlay and kind of shows you where you are in relation to it, and also has a red eye mode, which is nice. So because if you're outside looking through a telescope, you don't want to ruin your night vision. I think it's $2.99 on the App Store, and they also have it for Android.
Awesome, cool. How about you, Thomas? What's your pick this week?
I'm using a pick that I've mentioned on the show before, but I haven't apparently done it as a pick. So this is the Kerbal Space Program. It is a game that you play to create a space program, and it is a fantastic game. It is utterly ridiculous. All of the little people that you use are they're little blob type astronaut people, and they have smiles on their face no matter what's going on, unless something really horrible is happening, and then they just look terrified with mouth open and their eyes are gigantic bulges. It's a lot of fun. I think the three traits that they have are like courage, stupidity, and and something else that's in that same kind of range where it's like they're very brave but very dumb. And it's fantastic, though. It really is. All the physics are dead on. When you create a spaceship to launch, you have to worry about escape velocity. You have to worry about the weight of the fuel. You have to worry about the wind shear. There's no weather in the current version, but they are creating a Kerbal Space Program 2 right now. And that's one of the things that they're talking about, is adding in like weather effects and things like that. You can learn how to put things into orbit. You learn what orbit is, which is it can be very eye-opening. It's something that I knew intellectually, but then once I started playing the game, I actually understood how it really worked. So I very much recommend it. It's a fun game, even though it's older and there's a newer one coming out. I'm not sure when the new one's going to be out, but it's fun enough to play, and you'll waste tons of time exploring all the little planets that they have in the game, which are all based on real physics and work just like you would expect. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Cool. Can we just have a moment of silence for all the Kerbals that have been lost because of my poor math skills?
Been abandoned on other planets.
Yeah. They're out there along with all the Sims of Let Starve to Death. Apparently the Kerbal 2 is coming out in fall. This fall, cool. Fall 2021. So
next fall.
You get some time to play it before the next version comes out. Mine is also a simulator, but a much lower level simulator, although kind of cool given what's going on. So SpaceX, I was saying before, like the controls for the Crew Dragon are very much like you'd expect in a video game. So the video game generation, it's all touch controls. Well, you can pilot the Crew Dragon in a docking maneuver with the ISS, the International Space Station, with their SpaceX ISS sim. And it's really cool. You've got the same on-screen touch controls, and you can you have all of the different degrees of movement, and they tell you how fast you need to be going and stuff. It's not high-speed action. Let's just put it that way. It's sort of meditative, frankly, which is nice. The first time you do it, you're gonna end up burning up in the atmosphere or going off into deep space because you're not going to know what you're doing. So go ahead and get that over with, and then come back, look at the instructions like I did, and go, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And then from the start, instead of just fiddling with things, like start using the controls as you should. And when you finally end up docking, it's really satisfying. So that was a lot of fun. I have to give credit to the folks over at the Catholics of Oz podcast who brought this to my attention. I interrupted the editing of their podcast in order to go and play this and then come back to the editing because I was so intrigued by it, and it was well worth the interruption. So, and of course, that's free, the ISS Sim SpaceX simulator. All right, I think that does it for us. We do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Noralyn S., Matthew B., James B., Paul E., and David B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology in all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. If you'd like to respond or give us feedback on any of the topics we discussed, you can do so by commenting at sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com. And you'll find all the links to the articles we referenced and the picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. If you've not yet done so, please subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or on YouTube, where we have the SQPN YouTube channel, and make sure to click the bell to get notifications. Until next time, Jack Baruzzini, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Technology.
Thanks, Dom.
Thomas Sanjurjo, thank you as well.
It was a pleasure.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest. Remember, to infinity and beyond!